You're thinking about moving to Fairbanks and you've seen some water options that you're not quite sure about? Well, stay tuned because we're going to break down the 4 options that you're likely to see on Fairbanks listings. Stay tuned. Hey there, it's Justin Heminger with Apex Realty Group at Real Broker here in Fairbanks, and we've been helping folks buy and sell real estate in town for over 10 years. And if at any point during this video you've got questions, drop them in the comments below, or you can reach out to us on our website or email in the description. Let's get to it. The dry cabin. All right, so typically these are 1 to 2 bedroom properties that are sitting on just a little bit of land, and you've got typically a sink that you can wash your hands in, you can wash a few dishes in, and that's about it. As far as using the restroom, you've got an outhouse that's outside, and it's bare bones living. It's great. A lot of people live in dry cabins. My wife and I lived in a dry cabin we only did it for a few months when we first came to Fairbanks, but I mean, it was great. It was absolutely everything that we needed it to be for the time that we did it. In most dry cabins, what you're typically going to see, like I said, is that sink that you're going to have for washing dishes, washing hands. What we did when we lived in a dry cabin is we had aquatainers, about 5 to 7 gallons, that we would go back and forth to water wagon, and we would fill those up, bring them back. That way we always had fresh water to drink with, to wash our hands with, to wash dishes with. And underneath that sink, after we were washing our hands, there would be a little bit of plumbing in terms of where that sink would drain to, and it would drain into a 5-gallon bucket, and you would take that bucket and we would just dump it into the outhouse. So that was a great place to be able to put everything. Now, the tricky thing with dry cabins is that they are not conventionally financeable. So you can't necessarily go to every lender and go get financed for a dry cabin loan. One of the best lenders that you can reach out to here in Fairbanks about getting financing for a dry cabin is Denali State Bank. So I put the link for Denali State Bank in the right below. Give them a call, check in with them. They are a great option when it comes to financing for dry cabins. A little pro tip when it comes to living and using a dry cabin, especially when it comes to the outhouse: invest in some blue board. And when you get that blue board, cut out a little hole, for lack of a better term, for your seat and as your toilet seat, because in the winter that's going to stay nice and even temperatured. You can sit down on that and it's going to feel nice and cozy all year long. In the summer, it's going to feel great. In the winter, it's going to feel great. Highly recommend it. Blue board is the way to go. So, pro tip: water holding tank. So this one is, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a step above a dry cabin. What this is it's a large reservoir that is either buried somewhere on the property near the home, or it could be even inside the home, or it could be above ground and insulated. But they're typically fairly large, between 250 gallons to, I've seen 3,000 gallon water holding tanks, and they are essentially city water holding tanks that you can have all kinds of water sources deliver water to your home, and you've got fresh water as often as it can be delivered. It's an awesome option. The water is perfectly clean. It's fantastic, and the only limitation to it is the amount of water and how quickly you use it. Little story: when my wife and I moved from the dry cabin, we moved right into a rental that was a water holding tank. This is before we got into real estate. And the very first 2 or 3 days that we lived in the water holding tank, or with the water holding tank, we had 1,000 gallons in that property, and we went through all 1,000 gallons in the very first day because we flushed the toilet in the downstairs, and the little flapper stayed open and drained all the water right through that toilet. So we were lucky that we didn't burn up the water pump, and we were unlucky in that we did not have any water. Now with water holding tanks, you can also haul water yourself. If you've got a vehicle that can hold a small tank in the back, you can take that tank to some water filling stations and fill that tank yourself. It's a little bit cheaper that way, as opposed to having Water Wagon or Pioneer Wells or any of these other companies come out and drop water off for you. Significantly cheaper. I mean, it's not too bad as it is, but it's a little bit cheaper to haul it yourself. Now, the one thing to keep in mind when it comes to a water holding tank is the size of the holding tank. When it comes to some financing guidelines, the size of the holding tank absolutely matters. So size does matter sometimes. But the minimum size that you can have for a water holding tank is about 1,500 gallons for some financing guidelines. So pay attention when you're looking at homes with water holding tanks. Make sure that when you're reading through the disclosures that they've got at least 1,500 gallons in that water holding tank. This is something that we ran into several years ago where there was a string of homes that didn't have that 1,500 gallon size, and we had to make some changes. So in theory, most homes these days should have about 1,500 gallons, but keep an eye on it just to be sure. Before I forget, let me know in the comment section below if there's any questions or topics that you guys want to get some answers about, whether it's living in Fairbanks, buying a home in Fairbanks, selling a home in Fairbanks. Let me know in the comments. All right, city water. This is essentially, city water that is being cleaned and distributed by city utilities. It is perfectly clean, and it will keep going as long as you leave your faucet running. It's fantastic. The only downside about it is that it will, like I said, keep going, and they're going to charge you for it as long as it keeps going. So if the kids want to take a really long shower, they can, but it's going to cost you. One of my favorite stories is one of my partners, Brandon Phillips. He got a call on one of his listings one day that there was some abnormally large charges on a home in one of the city utilities that had something like 64,000 gallons that ran through this property in just a matter of a few days. And he went out there to go take a look at it, and sure enough, the entire crawl space was full up to about mid-chest with water. What had happened is there was a water main had broken and was flooding the crawl space. So he had to wade through all that water, twist off the main, and shut it off. But we were able to take care of that for him. Last but not least is the well water. Well water is it's just as it is everywhere else. It is kind of temperamental, but it's also the thing that everyone is looking for. Everyone wants their own well because no one's going to really tell you how much to use, and no one's going to charge you for how much you pull out of the ground, which is pretty nice. One of the downsides of it is that there's an electricity cost for running the pump to get it out of the ground. But aside from that, it's really as much as you can get out of the water or out of the ground is how much you can use. You still have to heat it if you want warm water, but it's pretty fantastic. Now, keep in mind, we do live in a pretty high seismic zone. So if the ground starts to move and shake, it could affect some of your flow. You may not get as much water if we have a large earthquake, because that could change where some of the water is flowing underneath the ground. Now, the last two homes that I've lived in over the past, how long have I been in Fairbanks? About 12 years. I've never had problems where an earthquake has happened and then I've run out of water or had low flow. But because it is technically something that could happen, I wanted to bring it up. But it's not something that's happened often enough that it's affected me or my family, but it's something that happens often enough that you should definitely be aware of it. Now, one of the other issues with well water are contaminants. And depending on where you live, whether it's in North Pole or Fairbanks or Salcha, you should be aware of some of the risks of contaminants in the water. Now, because of the time that we live in, there are a lot of options for getting your water tested. And if you're concerned about some of the contaminants in your water, you should absolutely get your water tested. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, you don't need to worry about XYZ contaminant. If you're concerned about it, get it tested. It may cost a little bit out of pocket, but it's better to get it tested and not have to worry about it if it's not there than to not get it tested and worry about it, in the back of your mind. Some of these contaminants can have long-lasting effects on your health. All right, I hope you got some value out of this video about the water sources that we've got here in town. If you did, give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate your help. If you have any questions about buying or selling real estate, give us a call, 907-885-0316. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.